And we're back, like we never left, in the car. Welcome to the Confessions of a Not-So-Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for taking this very slow-moving Friday afternoon drive with me here in New York. But once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episode. So I just did a boxing episode yesterday, and Mike Tyson's name, as it often does when you do an Ali episode or you talk about some of the greats, Tyson's name often comes up. And came up yesterday comparing his demolition of Michael Spinks in 1988 to Ali's Da Vinci Sistine Chapel dismantling of Cleveland Williams yesterday, 58 years ago, November 14, 1966. But today we're actually talking about a Mike Tyson fight that's going to go off later tonight against YouTuber. He's not really a YouTuber. I mean, he is, but he's a boxer. He can actually box. This isn't a joke. Jake Paul. Now, Mike is, what is he, 57 or 58 now? I don't think this is going to be a real fight. And by that, I mean, Mike is 58, and Jake Paul, although he's not really what you would call a top contender, he's a young guy who is very athletic and clearly knows how to box. I feel like the guys have some kind of an agreement that neither one is going to work the other over. Like if Mike comes out there and actually looks like, you know, when Mike Tyson was doing exhibitions when he was in his 40s and was still banging around and busting people up, if it's that Mike Tyson, I think he's going to take his foot off the accelerator. Now, 4 years ago, when Mike went against Roy Jones Jr., Roy looked really good in training. He was still fast as lightning. But when they got out there, Mike realized very early on that he could pretty much do what he wanted. And Mike, for all of the talk, and I'm bringing the devil with me, and Mike is not he's not angry anymore. Yeah, you can make him angry, but his default setting used to be foaming at the mouth with rage and wanting to, as he said, push my opponent's nose bone into his brain. That's a great quote. Tyson had a lot of great quotes like that. But early in the Jones fight, Mike realized, okay, Roy can't hurt me. He's quick. He's cute in here, the way he moves around. The movement looks great. But Mike did not try to hurt him. He did not. He knew that he was going to win if they were going to call it a decision, but he really didn't give a shit about decision or draw. I think they ended up calling it a draw, but Mike clearly, I felt, won the fight. But he did not want to hurt Roy. And I don't think it's, well, just because Roy is also a legendary name. I mean, you could argue that Roy and Mike Tyson are two of the 5 most talented men to ever put on the gloves. You won't get an argument from me if that's the argument you make. But I don't think that Mike wanted to hurt him. I think it's that simple. So if they go out there, and I'm not expecting this, because Jake is very quick, and Mike, it takes him longer to deliver his shots. He's not even 45 anymore. If Mike lands a huge shot early, I think he's going to coast. Don't think that he's going to look to take Paul and knock it. I'm just not seeing it. And I also don't think that Jake Paul is going to treat Mike Tyson like it's Tyron Woodley and, you know, that home run bomb that he landed, which a lot of people thought was fake. It didn't look fake to me. Woodley's slow motion, drop, it looked a little like Jersey Joe Walcott against Marciano in 56. Or was it 50? Not 56. It was 52. 52 or 53. But people, I think we need to, and we're certainly going to know after tonight just how much, but we need to moderate the expectation for what Tyson we're going to see. Now, yes, he has kept himself in shape. It's kind of like how John McEnroe can still play tennis at a high level, but he can't compete with the top people. He can still play the hell out of the sport of tennis, and he will beat the next, 999 out of 1,000 people who think they know how to play tennis. There's certain things that you don't lose it all the way, and obviously tennis is not a sport where you're getting your head split open by punches, and you're bleeding, and no. It's just a gentleman's type of a sport. But we're going to find out how bad of an idea this was, or if it wasn't a bad idea at all, because Jake Paul knows enough about how to do this where he can carry Mike, if that's what it looks like, that Mike is just gassed after the first minute and a half, and Jake is just gonna carry it. But this is not George Foreman. This is not George Foreman. The thing with George is he looked older than he was. When he fought Evander, he was 42. It doesn't look that much different now. George looked old when he was in his late 30s. When George won the title from Michael Moorer, he was 45. And again, another irony is Foreman still threw those weird roundhouse punches. He threw a lot of them against Evander. Historically, the fight with Evander looks better for Evander than it did maybe at the time, given the fact that 3.5 years later, George won the title back from the guy that beat Evander, Michael Moorer. But George, at age 45, I don't think that 57, 58-year-old Mike Tyson would have a fucking snowball's chance in hell against that George Foreman. Even though, in the Moorer fight, you could say that Michael won at least 8 of the first 9 rounds. But if you look at Foreman in that fight, the way that he's moving around, the way that he's pawing, and it's almost like he spent 9 rounds figuring out, where do I have to stand where this guy thinks I'm just going to keep going like this and then I'm going to go like that. I hope that Mike doesn't get hurt. I just don't want the guy to get hurt. You'd rather Jake Paul get hurt, again, if you have no rooting interest, because he's young. He'll be okay. And this isn't the kind of fight where guys are going to suffer permanent damage, because we're not talking about Ali Frazier 3, where they're going 14 rounds in 100-degree heat and each guy is just landing bombs on the other. There's not going to be enough. It's 2-minute rounds. There's not going to be enough time under tension, in this case getting hit. I don't think that either guy is going to suffer permanent damage no matter what ends up happening. I hope that I'm right about that. Ideally, would see an entertaining fight, something on the order of what happened with Tyson and Jones, but I would hope that it would be more entertaining, because, again, the problem with that fight was that Mike was not really throwing because, like I said, he didn't want to embarrass an all-time great, a fellow legend. So we'll see. I don't even get Netflix anymore. When I had Netflix, I never watched it. There were no shows on Netflix other than Cobra Kai, so I am missing Cobra Kai. That is something. But I don't think that I'm going to, I could go to a bar. I don't think that I'm going to do that. I'll find out. I'm sure people will text me, holy shit, Mike knocked him out in the first 15 seconds. Or, what a joke, Jake just landed 73 unanswered punches. Mike took a knee and they waved the fight over. I mean, it could be either one of those things, right? But I would think that as young and as sturdy as Jake Paul has seen, because he has eaten some pretty good punches from guys that knew how to deliver shots, I don't think that he necessarily crumbles just because Mike hits him. And that's the thing with boxing, is that we've seen, or at least you will see people eat what appear to be really heavy shots and walk through them. And then sometimes they'll get hit with what doesn't appear to be a loaded punch, and a fight's over. So something like that could happen. But it wouldn't surprise me if Mike, especially early when he's got all of his energy, Mike could really square Jake up, and Jake could seemingly walk through it, and people are like, holy shit, not expecting that. But if you ask me, what do I want to see? I want to see the fight distance. Each guy has his moments, but no real terrible damage. No heavy knockdowns. Nobody opens up a cut. Nobody ends up in the hospital. In the immortal words of Tony Burton in Rocky IV, this is supposed to be an exhibition. Now, I know that it's sanctioned, or at least the last I checked, that it was going to count to the records. Again, this is all nonsense. It matters what Mike Tyson, he's 50-6, or he'll be 50-7. Nobody cares. It's not really that important. And Jake Paul's record is not really that important either, because he's not going to suddenly become a contender for the light heavyweight title. As much as I'm sure he would like that, he got a long way to go no matter what happens in this fight tonight. I'm not sure about the undercard, but I want to say, just as somebody who I was a fan of Tyson's talent, even when I was a kid, but I was not a fan of Tyson, the personality. I didn't like the attitude. He talked to people. I would say I was a kid, but when his ended, then I became a fan, because there was no denying the historical import, and he is a fun fighter to debate. from a historical perspective, because he was an action fighter, he was a swarmer who had incredible tools. And maybe he didn't live up to his potential because there were those that thought that he would rule the heavyweight division for a decade. It usually doesn't work out that way in boxing. Someone always comes along, you get a little bit older. And even the great fighters who had very long primes and then near primes, such as Ray Leonard, such as Hagler, Roberto Duran, Thomas Hearn, the Four Kings, you're still going to lose fights. You're not going to, unless you're a Joe Calzaghe or Andre Ward, but it's very, very rare that somebody just has a championship like Joe Louis making 25 defenses. That is the exception, not the rule. So Tyson didn't quite actualize his greatness, but we got enough, and the threat, the sense of danger that has always surrounded him is why he's still box office, and he's a character. That's another thing that I would not have expected from young Tyson. You could say the same about George, because young George Foreman, as his old buddy and training partner, sparring partner, the great Sonny Liston, who Mike has talked about a lot, he even said, Sonny Liston made me look like a Boy Scout. That's a direct quote. But George Foreman was such an intimidating, even more so than Mike, because he was so fucking big. George Foreman was one of those guys, 6'4", 230, didn't have a scrap of fat on him, didn't work out with weights, and he was jacked. But nobody could have imagined that George Foreman would become such a likable character, I hate to say wholesome, because he is in a sport where he's trying to knock someone's head off, but George Foreman became a character in the best sense of the term, and a likable guy. Even in fights he lost, Evander, the two guys had so much fun before the fight, making jokes. Mr. Foreman, if you think you could beat me, you're off your rocker. Yeah, because George at 41 or 42 is so old. And Tommy Morrison, he and George had a lot of laughs when they went on tour before their fight. But Mike Tyson has, in some ways, rehabilitated his public image as a sort of problem child. That's ironic, the problem child. But Tyson, he seems like someone who didn't think he was going to live this long, that he was going to die. Maybe he was going to wrap a Porsche around a telephone pole at 160 miles an hour, something. But he seems grateful for the life that he has had in the last 2 decades. Another reason why I don't think that either guy is going to be going all out, because there isn't any reason to. Just give us a good show, make your money. But even that crazy animated cartoon show, Mike Tyson Mysteries, that show is a scream. It's fucking hilarious. For those of you who don't know that show, Google it. And most of the episodes are available on YouTube. It is a riot. And the animation, it looks exactly like Mike Tyson. They got the tattoo and the whole thing. And the great Norm Macdonald plays, is he playing a parakeet? I think he's playing a bird. It's just really weird, wacky show. But I'm just hopeful that this goes reasonably well, because you don't ever want to see somebody when they shouldn't be fighting getting beat up out there, but especially somebody like Tyson, who has done so much to kind of rehabilitate his public image and to do a lot of good. After spending most of his 20s on the wrong side of the law, and there was always that fear. Reporters would be interviewing him, and he always was looking like he was going to take a swing at somebody. So hopefully we had a good fight tonight. Nobody gets hurt too badly, and the fans in attendance, who are probably going to pay through the nose, are satisfied. Maybe there'll be a couple of great fights on the undercard. That's the kind of thing you never know for sure. And at the main event ends up being, hey, you know what? I'm glad I plunked down my $50, $80, whatever it is for the pay-per-view. I don't feel like I got taken advantage of. So that's the thing. Tyson Spinks, the 93-second demolition. From a certain point of view, people could feel cheated, but they saw something they'll never see again. That's what you're not going to get tonight. You're not going to get, well, we never saw that. No chance. But Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul, November 15, 2024. I am not going to watch it live unless I get invited somewhere at the last minute or what have you. But let's just have a good, clean fight, gentlemen. Nobody gets hurt. And that's it. That's about all I have to say. In the immortal words of Forrest Gump, that's all I have to say about that. This has been episode 358 of the Confession of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. Funny, I've been doing a lot of boxing episodes lately, but a lot of people seem to enjoy it, so why not, right? Especially today. If you catch this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, or the others in which we're hosted, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with a new episode real soon. Till then, peace.